What if being chosen to serve the king at night meant your body stopped belonging to you? In royal courts across Europe, women called ladies of the bedchamber stood closest to power, but behind velvet doors and candlelight, silence protected the throne, not them, and everyone knew it. So why did the door to a king's bedroom never truly lock for her? Let's find out. Her body counted as royal property, and she carried the pain that title hid. You step into the king's room, and even your own skin stops feeling like yours. Rank decides how close you stand, how long you stay, and whether you are allowed to breathe easily. An army answers to him, a council advises him, a church blesses him. Yet you hold only a small key to his bedroom and no real way out. The title sounds refined, almost graceful, yet the truth feels like a bargain sealed long before you arrived, likely the day your family sent you to court. Across early modern courts, women closest to royal bodies carried titles such as Woman of the Bedchamber, Lady of the Bedchamber, or Chamberer, and their duties covered washing, dressing, undressing, changing sheets, and guiding the most private routines of the day. The nearer the task moved toward bare skin, the easier powerful men began treating that same skin like furniture that came with the room. Wages, references, and shelter tied these servants tightly to their masters. Historians studying female servants in 17th century England describe a world almost empty of labor protection, where masters controlled pay, reputation, and safety, which meant an accusation against a powerful man could cost a maid her income, her housing, and her place in society all at once. Honor sounded noble in theory, yet in practice it often meant paying with your body when he decided to take. When a royal hand lingered too long on a shoulder or slipped under linen instead of handing over a shirt, the choice inside her mind turned sharp and immediate: survive this minute or survive the year ahead. Early modern criminal records show that even when women reported rape, many cases collapsed and conviction rates stayed painfully low. And if ordinary women struggled for justice, a royal servant stood even lower in the chain of importance. Official documents praised loyalty, silence, and devotion without asking what any of it cost her. Generations later, people remembered velvet curtains and candlelight while forgetting the bruises hidden beneath lace. And that unlocked door did not promise rest. It promised a darker demand waiting on the other side. When nightly summons felt like sentencing instead of romance. A knock cut through the quiet part of the night, and her stomach tightened before her feet touched the floor. Even before a word reached her ears, she already knew what it meant. Summons rarely arrived as formal letters. Instead, a valet appeared with careful manners and said, "His Majesty requests you tonight." And every person along the corridor understood there was only one safe reply. Nobody dared to shape the word refuse with their lips. At Versailles in the 18th century, Louis XV kept a discreet house called Parc aux Cerfs just outside the palace. And between about 1752 and 1768, a steady stream of young women and girls lived there, recruited by his valet, Dominique Lebel, and moved in or out as his interest shifted. Many came from families hoping for money, dowries, or favor, and although papers described agreement, consent bent under hunger, ambition, and fear until it hardly resembled a free choice. Pressure like this moved quietly across European courts. Open force often proved unnecessary because social rules, economic dependence, and religious obedience carried out the work for him. And a bedchamber maid understood that refusal could cost wages, lodging, and even the chance of future marriage in a society where marriage or service meant survival. Legal records reveal how tilted the scales could be. In Georgian Wales, over a long period, courts recorded 58 rape allegations and 111 attempted rape cases. Yet only a small portion ended in conviction, with judges and juries probing the woman's character more than the man's power. Now imagine answering those questions about the ruler whose face appeared on the nation's coins. So when they called, she walked. Guards studied the floor. Courtiers pretended ignorance. Ladies judged without speaking, and the corridor created the illusion of choice, while everyone knew the cost of refusal could follow her for the rest of her life. And that night, the walk stretched farther than usual. Someone new waited behind the door. She bled, cried, shook, then got told to feel honored. The first time tore more deeply than anyone admitted aloud. By morning, the pain shifted from body to mind, settling into places no one could see. When powerful men took servants to bed, they treated physical pain as proof of purity rather than evidence of harm. Elite European culture prized girls from good families for untouched bodies, then reduced that value to nothing in a single night that served the man far more than it protected the woman. And moralists spoke about female honor as treasure without naming who paid for that treasure in blood. Medical knowledge in early modern Europe lagged far behind the damage unfolding in royal bedrooms. There were no trauma counselors, no antibiotics, and no shared language for panic attacks, and doctors often labeled shaking, sleeplessness, or fainting as hysteria or weakness instead of recognizing trauma. When a maid bled after repeated forced encounters, the court prescribed rest, prayer, and silence, as though quiet could heal what power had broken. Meanwhile, gifts appeared: a bracelet, finer fabric, perhaps a promise of a pension or a future husband. And at Versailles, many mistresses received apartments, servants, and allowances, while gossip pamphlets described them as fortunate favorites, measuring comfort in rooms and jewels rather than in the cost of nightmares. Law offered little relief. Many early modern rape trials focused on strangers or lower-status men, while abuse inside elite households rarely reached official records at all, leaving a bedchamber maid trapped in a vast gap between written law and lived reality. The same authority that opened her door at night also influenced judges, bishops, and patrons she might approach for help. So she cried softly, hid stained linen, and accepted jewelry she never requested. Others framed the situation as honor, intimacy, or favor, yet she learned that their honor lay on one side of the bed while her pain settled heavily on the other. Soon, even his restless moods would circle back to her. The king slept fine. She stared at the ceiling, praying for forgetting. Sleep came easily to him. Beside him, she counted shadows on the canopy and waited for dawn. Royal beds carried more than bodies. From the Tudor period onward, the bedchamber also functioned as a political space where monarchs met trusted intimates and discussed affairs of state, which meant attendants often slept nearby, sometimes in the same room or just beyond a curtain, ready to answer any call at any hour. In many early modern households, servants slept close to their workspaces, whether in corridors, antechambers, or even at the foot of a master's bed, and ladies-in-waiting shared the queen's chamber so they could lace gowns or fetch water at once. When the servant attended a king rather than a queen, that same closeness granted him steady access to a body that could not safely refuse. Rest turned into another form of control. She lay half-dressed, prepared to rise the moment he stirred, and if he called, she moved. If he reached, she endured, and if she flinched, she risked mockery or demotion, while chronic lack of sleep combined with fear and repeated assault slowly ground her sense of self down to pure survival. An anxious body carries real costs. Modern trauma research links chronic hypervigilance to higher risks of heart trouble, digestive problems, and long-term depression. And although the vocabulary has changed across centuries, the experience of staring at a ceiling while your abuser sleeps remains painfully recognizable. Morning brought his complaints about a stiff back or dull head. She tightened sheets, rubbed ointment into sore muscles, fetched chocolate or wine, and smiled at jokes about his long night, while nobody paused to ask how long that same night had felt to her. Soon, the marks beneath her sleeves began telling their own story. Every touch left bruises she hid under perfect manners. Powder softened the mark on her jaw. Lace concealed the fading yellow on her shoulder, and her curtsy never faltered. Violence against servants at elite